coming to you from Austin, Texas on this bright and sunny day. It's Color Commentary, and we are Michael Petchek.
And Adrian Gonzalez. Have you ever noticed it's always bright and sunny here?
Yeah, we're not getting winter this year, I think. It's still 87 degrees. I think I tweeted something the other day saying that I was at a cafe and they were advertising a pumpkin spice latte, and I felt that was a little sarcastic given the weather.
All right, sick reference time. Only 90s kids will get it. It always seems to be 10 o'clock on this island. Tweet at me if you know what that is.
I don't know what that is.
I'll tell you later.
I didn't really have TV growing up.
It's not a TV show.
Okay. So F&M, I went 3-1.
Oh, that must be
a while.
Nice. Must be real nice, Mike. I went 1-3. I got thoroughly crushed by every one of my opponents except one, and they were pretty close. Just
you got the bad beats.
I played against some really good players, and I kept some hands maybe I shouldn't have. You see, I have this problem when I play Affinity where it's like, oh, I have a drum and a land and a prophetic prison, but no creatures. Oh, this is probably good enough.
And this week it wasn't.
No, this week it was not. Some weeks it's good enough. I always, I top deck the card, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a great Magic player. I top decked exactly what I needed.
So I was on that blue-black alchemy list, which is, as I've described it, kind of the horrifying love child of blue-black Angler Delver and blue-black teachings.
And you really made it your own, and it's good. It's a good deck.
We actually played round one, and Adrian flooded out in a 17 land deck.
I was Mike. I mean, did I even win a game? I think I did win game one.
You won game one, and I don't.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because you tapped out, and I was like, "Sucka, Atog Fling."
Yeah, and then I just played really conservatively, keeping up counterspell mana for Atogs.
I knew it wasn't gonna work game 2 and 3 because I was like, I was like, because of the look on your face, I was like, he's not going to tap out again.
Yeah, no tapping out. I think for the entirety of game 2 and 3, I had like between 2 and 3 counter spells in my hand at all times.
Yeah,
and usually an extra kill spell just to force you to like deal with it.
Yeah,
but we can actually that's pretty much the gist of F&M. It wasn't
Mike crushed and I got crushed. The shoe was on the other foot, and it was opposite day. While Purges knocked, if you will.
But on the bright side, I feel like I've got my mojo back. I found a deck that I really enjoy. That's
a control deck, no less. Because you had some success with Stompy.
Yeah, I had some limited success with Stompy. I had that run where I was doing pretty well with Mono Red Heroic, but I'm back in my comfort zone, and it feels good. And I'm not the most spiky wind-driven player, but feels good every now and then to 3-1 4-0.
We all know you're the Timmy Vorthos of this relationship.
And actually, for this week's Deck Tech, we're going to be talking about the list that I ran Friday. So this way we can actually go in not blind, and I can have insightful things to say.
It's also a spooky list. Cue lightning, thunder, noise for Halloween.
Yeah, this is kind of our Halloween episode. I mean, there's some spoopy stuff in here. I'm not gonna lie. So blue-black alchemy is kind of it's a slimmed down version of blue-black teachings. Instead of teachings, it's running Forbidden Alchemy, which is 2 and a blue. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, choose one of them, put it in your hand, the rest go to your graveyard.
Your spooky graveyard.
Flashback for 6 and a black. We covered this actually last episode when we were talking about the differences between this and teachings. And so this one, the initial investment is lower. You hit it on turn 3 as opposed to turn 4. And the flashback takes 1 more mana. So it's not, tutoring up exactly what you need, but it is digging you 4 cards deep and finding what you need out of those 4.
And honestly, the way that it's become more clear, but the way that you've set up the deck, it works a lot better than teachings.
Yeah. So you're going to, there's other stuff in this list that cares about the graveyard. So, milling 3 cards is actually probably fine most of the time.
Right. And teachings will always get you the cards you need, but this is, superior spell if you want to bin cards anyway and just care about the selection more than actually getting the exact card that you want right in that moment.
Yeah.
So because like playing this on turn 3, picking the best of 3 cards and then delving them away is like pretty awesome. So
Speaking of which, we'll get
yeah,
into it.
sorry,
With
I'll
the
let you
creatures,
I'll let you cover the list
with the creatures. So we've got one copy of our Chaomancer to get value out of our spells again. We've got 3 copies of Eldrazi Sky Spawner. So Eldrazi Sky Spawner is 2 and a blue for a 2/1 with flying, and it comes along with a 1/1 spawn token, which you can sacrifice at any point for a colorless mana. Also has Devoid, surprisingly relevant on a blue card.
Yeah, I had a Pyroblast in my hand game too. Could not kill this flyer.
Yep, you could have targeted
sucked. Yeah, I could have targeted it. I could have magical hacked it and then targeted it.
But Sky Spawner is just kind of, the effective beater in this deck. It's evasive. It comes along with a second body that can, be used for a sort of shenanigans or chumping. Actually, it's probably the most surprising card in this list that has put in work for me. Then we got 2 copies of Gurmag Angler. We're filling up the bin. We might as well have the zombie fish.
I mean, it's still probably one of the best creatures in the format, even with Gearseeker Serpent. Like Gurmag Angler is way easier to cast, so
I mean, it's also just like a 5 toughness is the magical number, right? Like
Right.
it's very hard to deal with something like that. It also benefits from the fact that it doesn't get hit by Doomblade or Victim of Night. So
yeah, it's objectively a good creature.
yep. Then next up we've got the bread and butter of any control or mid range deck. 4 copies of Moldrifter. It's just good.
I mean, hashtag man Moldrifter, am I
right? And then finally, this was my inclusion from some of the more stock lists I'd seen online. A lot of the lists were running 3 Gurmag Anglers. I cut one of them for a Twisted Abomination. And
that card is really good. And there are reasons other than the fact that it's a 5/3. I think it's because Regenerate is surprisingly good ability.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Twisted Abomination is a 5/3 for 5 and a black, which is a little pricey. But for 1 black, you can regenerate it, and for 2 colorless, you can swamp cycle it. So it's in your hand. You pay 2, you pitch it, you tutor up a swamp.
Very relevant with some of these other spells, as we will soon see. But
Yeah.
that card is, I mean, if you resolve that card, it's pretty insane. It kills Gurmag Anglers. It blocks Gearseeker Serpent. It blocks anything on the ground. It's a very effective attacker that's extremely hard to deal with.
Yeah.
Basically, you need to be playing Journey to Nowhere or sack effects. Your board is pretty sack proof since you have Sky Spawner, and Journey to Nowhere is just kind of terrible right now. So
yeah. And
also a zombie cannot be Doombladed or Victim of Night.
Yeah. It's just very, very efficient at keeping itself on the board. Like when we played, like most of Affinity's 4/4 creatures usually have a pretty good time against most decks. But a 5/3 just kind of kept you from attacking a couple turns in a row.
Yeah, a 5/3 that I can't kill.
Yeah.
You know? Like I can't even like trade with it. It's just gonna eat all my creatures.
So I'm really happy with that tweak to the deck. Like it's not always like the fact that you can swamp cycle it if it's not relevant in the matchup and then board it out, I think is great. But the creatures are kind of the least exciting part of this deck, if I'm going to be honest. The spells section, we're going to start with our sorceries. We've just got 2 Chainer's Edict and 3 Preordains. And most of the lists I'd seen online were running 4 Chainer's Edicts, and I think sorcery speed is just not good enough right now.
Right.
Like, obviously, you're running it because it's got the flashback tacked onto it,
And
you're milling stuff anyway, right?
Right, and you're also a control deck, so you're probably going to make use of it sooner or later.
So I cut this to 2 just so that I still have them because they are still good in some matchups. Like sometimes sorcery speed removal turn 2 is just fine. And I replace them with stuff we'll see later. Then we got 3 copies of Preordain, just a really nice way to, set up it on your early turn. If you're a little land light, you maybe scry a land to the top. If you're a little spell light, you maybe scry a better spell to the top. Just really solid. I've been considering swapping this out for Ponder or Think Twice's. I'm probably going to play around with it.
I like Preordain here.
I think Preordain's pretty good, especially since you do care a little bit about the top of your library.
Yeah.
For example, late game, you can Preordain and then Forbidden Alchemy and get rid of stuff that you don't need at the moment. What else we got here? All right. Moving into the instance, we've got 4 copies of Accumulated Knowledge, which we mercilessly trashed last episode, but
And
I
yet
actually
here
really
you
like
are.
here.
Here you are.
I've noticed that it make a lot of people bring in Grave Hate against it and the assorted other graveyard elements in this deck. And just given the amount of card advantage, I'm not always sure that bringing in Grave Hate that isn't Relic of Progenitus is good.
Well, what other people are bringing in Fairy Macabre? It seems terrible.
Yeah. I think that Relic is really good against this deck because
Relic.
you progressively get rid of it. Although it does have the catch of Relic doesn't do well against a Forbidden Alchemy. When you just bin 3 things and one of those is probably not super important.
What's better than 1 relic? 2 relics.
2 relics. Then we got 1 copy of Agony Warp, black and a blue for target creature gets -3/-0 and target creature gets -0/-3.
This is just a great catch-all spell. It's also, a mainstay of the teachings decks. Just a great way to like nullify an attack and kill something.
Yeah, I was gonna say I got to live the dream against a pair of Spire Golems. I got to trade my Muldrifter for one of them and have the other one deal no damage.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. The Discourse.
Then we got 4 copies of just OG Counterspell. There's not a better version. Like you just run 4 of them in a control deck, right?
Mike is playing Ice Age counterspells.
Yes,
just so everyone knows.
I like the Ice Age one because it's got a lot of unnecessary text tacked onto it. I'm very picky about my additions. We might have to tackle that on the show at some point.
Yes, I am as well, so do not worry.
Then we got 2 copies of Disfigure, a black instant. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. This kills a lot of stuff in the format.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of Control's best early plays, short of preordain. Like ideally, you're preordaining on turn 1. If you have a black mana, you can then disfigure something on turn 2.
Yeah, this deck is playing some of the Karoo lands, so maybe turn 1 you put down a swamp just so that way if they have a relevant turn 1 play, you can disfigure it because you're bouncing the swamp anyway.
It's a fairly good spell overall.
Yeah. Copy of Essence Scatter, 1 and a blue, counter a creature. Creatures are very relevant in this matchup.
Why do you hate Remove Soul?
I actually was looking through my box and I found out I only have a playset of Essence Scatters and no Remove Souls, which I should probably be fixing. I kind of want to get the Magic Player Awards Remove Souls.
Those are pretty sweet.
They are.
The full art ones.
Yeah,
they have them at Pat's. Pat's games.
The full art weird ones where it's like a blob dude like disintegrating or something.
Yeah, I have the one. I have the original Remove Souls with the skeleton and the muscles, and he's
also
getting
good.
disintegrated.
Also quality. Yeah, just kind of a catch-all for creatures. 3 copies of Forbidden Alchemy. After about 4 to 5 uses, you really don't need any more of these.
Right, 4 seems like a bit much.
Yeah, 4 copies of it would be a bit much because that's 8 uses. With teachings, since you're only really getting one thing, it makes a lot more sense to have the full 4. I'd actually been testing this for a while online with a teachings replacing the 3rd Forbidden Alchemy, and I did not care for it. Then we got a copy of Ghastly Demise, 1 black, destroy target non-black creature if its toughness is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard.
Not creatures.
Yeah, not creature cards. It is just cards. And honestly, by a lot of the time, you can fill up your graveyard to like 8 things, and at that point, there's not much in the format that survives.
Right, it's fairly good. It's non-black creatures, though, right?
Yes, it is non-black, which does mean it comes out in some matchups. Then 2 of Soul Manipulation, former maybe board alum. And just solid.
By solid, he means insane. And every time I cast this card, I'm probably winning the game now.
So Soul Manipulation, for those who don't remember, is 1, a black and a blue, instant, choose 1 or both, the best words you could ever see on a modal spell, counter target creature spell, or return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I have gotten to live the dream of countering a Muldrifter with this and getting back my own Muldrifter. It was just so good.
Card is good.
Oh yeah, just really solid. It also means that you can be a little bit more loose about what you're getting out of your Forbidden Alchemies.
Well, have you lived the dream of binning your Archaeomancer, returning your Archaeomancer with the soul manipulation,
Yes.
and then using your Archaeomancer to get back soul
Yes,
manipulation?
I have.
Oh my god.
The one of Archaeomancer in this deck is like I'm never like for the most part doing like the value Archaeomancer where I just get back something dumb. It's always like, oh, I'm gonna like soul manipulation back my Archaeomancer, play it, get the soul manipulation back, get something else back, or like I'm gonna Archaeomancer back my 4th ancestral knowledge or accumulated knowledge. Sorry, why do I always do that?
Ancestral knowledge is a card.
Is it? Okay. That's probably why. Then we got 2 copies of Tragic Slip. Tragic Slip is a black target creature. It's -1/-1 until end of turn. And then as morbid, if a creature died this turn, it gets -13/-13 instead.
The magic number for magic.
So it's basically a kill spell. Notably, the Sky Spawner, the token it comes with, you can sacrifice that at any point for a colorless mana, and more importantly, it turns on morbid.
Right. I mean, you can see that in Pig Trinket as well. I mean,
yeah, it's goofy fun. And then we're last on the list here in the instance is what I replaced 2 of my copies of Chainer's Edict with, 2 copies of Victim of Night, and this was a bit of a meta call in that my 2 options here were I was considering either Victim or what's the other one? Grasp of Darkness. Both are 2 black. Grasp hits pretty much everything in the format. But it came down to the fact that the people playing black and therefore zombies and zombies and vampires and all the things that
spoops,
all the things that Victim doesn't hit were all playing Gurmag Anglers, which I can't hit with Grasp of Darkness. So I basically said I'm going to lose a couple percentage points on that matchup, but it's going to just be a removal spell for anyone else.
The game of the spoops.
Then our land base, a copy of Bajuka Bog, just incidental graveyard hate, 3 Demir Aqueducts, 4 Dismal Backwaters, 7 islands, 5 swamps, 2 Radiant Fountains for the life gain, help stabilize early game. And then the sideboard. Got some interesting things here. We got a copy of Capsize, the hard lock on its own, if you can get it going. For the more grindy games.
It's a good card.
It is a good card.
That's my evaluation. It's a card that returns things to your opponent's hand for
yes.
6 mana. Is my evaluation of that card.
Repeatedly. That's the key thing. Like Capsize on face is like a bad boomerang, but as soon as you get to 6 mana, it's just infinite boomerangs, and some decks just can't deal with that. Then we got a copy of Complete Disregard, 2 and a black, just exile target creature whose power is 3 or less. It's an instant. It gets rid of Drakes. It gets rid of Delvers. Gets rid of a lot of surprising threats.
Mm-hmm. Gets rid of Mnemonic Walls and Archaeomancers.
Yep. It exiles. So, it also comes in against some of the graveyard-based decks where you're just like, I really don't want you getting that back with Tortured Existence or Grim Harvest. Then we've got 2 copies of Dispel, blue, counter target instant, just really good in the control mirror.
That's a pretty good card. I used to run those in my Affinity sideboard alongside the Hydroblasts.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a time when it was good.
Color me a little surprised there. Then we got 2 copies of Shrivel. All creatures get -1/-1. This kills a decent amount of our stuff, but it also matches up really well against Delver.
Not 100% convinced that you should not be playing Nausea instead with the little farting fairy on it. But.
Functional reprints, folks. I really hope. Is there an instant speed like 3 mana Shrivel? Because I really wish that was a thing.
I don't think that exists at common.
I don't think it does either, but I wish it did.
Is Infest a common?
No, it is not.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would be running that. Then we got 3 copies of Duress. Again, just mainstay in black control decks in the sideboard. A copy of Evenkar's Justice helps out against some matchups where you're going to go late and you need to be able to wrath the board. We do not have access to Pristine Talisman. This is not a win con.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to put that out there. Then we got 2 copies of Hydroblast. The blasts just kind of go in wherever they can be played, right? A copy of Spellstutter Sprite. This is an interesting one. It was in a lot of the lists I'd been looking at online, and I kind of kept it in there thinking there must be something they're onto. I think it's for Burn and Stompy. That's the only places I've felt like it has any application.
There's a story where LSV put like a one of like chrome mocks in his sideboard for a deck that like didn't run them. It's because he needed a 15th card, and so
Yeah.
every time he saw it, someone else running it, like he'd be like, "Oh, they must have copied my sideboard because that card is absolutely useless."
So it does actually have some use. It's not the best. I'm thinking about swapping it out for pretty much any other counterspell.
Spell Pierce.
And then I got 2 copies of Steel Sabotage, which is counter target artifact for 1 blue or return an artifact to its owner's hand for 1 blue. And I've used both modes of this. Like if your affinity opponent has like a relatively narrow board where they've only got 1 or 2 creatures, this can be used to definitely like prolong your life for a turn and just kind of keep you afloat.
You can bounce lands.
You can bounce the lands. That's not optimal. Most of the time, you're trying to just like counter something that's going to kill you. But this deck is really fun. I'd missed control. I'm a bad man who like went out and decided I was going to play aggro decks, and I just missed this. It's really sweet.
Well, as long as you're happy.
So actually let's get to the economic side of this. So 44.96 at date of recording on TCG Player, and for digital from Card Hoarder it's 36.73.
So the cost of the deck and my phone number.
So in terms of this for collection building, almost every card in this is relevant to blue-black control. Like, I don't think any of these cards are things that you would be unhappy to see. Also, this is a deck where you can just take pieces in and out as necessary. Like, you can decide, okay, I don't quite like some of this removal. I can swap it out for other similar removal. Like, I don't know. If you're a control fan and you want to play a control deck that's good in this slightly faster meta, this felt really solid for me all night.
Blue-black control is also one of those archetypes where it's very, very customizable.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you can, like, this ports right into teachings. If you already have teachings, you probably have a good chunk of these cards. It's got most of Angler Delver in there. Like,
Yeah.
I think just generally a solid buy if you're looking to play blue-black at any time in the future. Do you want to move on to, I guess it's not the maybe board. It's like the future maybe board.
Yeah. Well, we're not doing the maybe board today because we got a very spicy new little meatball from the new Commander decks, Ash Barons.
Now, before people get into it, we understand Commander 2016 is going to be released selectively in treasure chests. We don't have confirmation this is going to be online yet, but it was too sweet to ignore, and it's only 1 card.
Right. And like it feels good. It feels like a side grade.
Yeah. So I'm gonna read the card here. So it's Ash Barons. It's a land. It taps for a colorless, and then it has basic land cycling for 1 generic. So you pay 1, you discard this, you get a basic land out of your deck into your hand.
The play that immediately came to my mind was you can play this turn 1, and then turn 2 you can tap it for a mana, play a bounce land, and then cycle it.
Yeah. So that it does go to help like the kind of the 3 color decks that are a little bit rougher on their mana bases. It also just like I could see what is it? Jeskai Kitty. Jeskai Kitty could play this. They bounce stuff to their hand all the time.
It's like their thing.
Yeah, it's their jam, man.
I'm not like, so because it costs a mana to cycle it, I'm not convinced it's strictly better or strictly worse than Evolving Wilds. Because
or Terramorphic, yeah.
Because the other upside is you get the land in your hand, so you can then immediately play it untapped. So
Yes.
It's really sort of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You're paying a cost either way.
So one of the ways I was trying to like think this through is turn 1, would I rather play a basic? Like, for example, in this list I was just talking about, the UB Alchemy list, I play a Swamp turn 1. I have a Disfigure and Ash Barons in hand. If my opponent plays something I can kill with the Disfigure, I disfigure it. If they don't, I cycle Ash Barons end of turn.
Right, and that seems fine.
Yeah, it seems great. Late game, obviously, I think it's better because if you haven't made your land drop yet this turn, you cycle it for 1, get an untapped mana that you need.
Net neutral on mana.
You're net neutral on mana, but you're cleaning up your draws a little bit. Obviously, a minor thing in most lists. I can't see this as anything but gas for some decks.
Yeah, it does seem fairly good.
Strict upgrade to the panoramas.
The panoramas only search for their shard lands.
Yes, there's only a shard, and you pay
Pauper.
one.
I guess it doesn't, because it searches for a mountain, or it doesn't search for a basic. You could theoretically get a dual land with those. Am I right?
Yes, I believe so.
In our format, obviously doesn't matter, but yeah, for us, I would say yes, because you can get any of 5 lands as opposed to
any of 3.
Yeah.
I mean, most decks aren't going above that, but for example, I told one of our local players who plays Domain Zoo about this. He hadn't seen it, and he was just like, "This is amazing."
Yeah,
this is
in
great.
Domain Zoo, it seems very, very good, because that's another deck that bounces things to their hand pretty regularly.
Yeah, and I think this is a really solid upgrade. I really hope that it gets on Magic Online. We actually, I don't know, have you been watching Eternal Weekend at all?
No.
So we're recording this while Eternal Weekend is ongoing, and I've seen a bunch of people on Twitter complaining about the fact that right now in Eternal Weekend there are cards being played in Legacy that you can't play on Magic Online.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. I mean, that's a problem we know all too well, and you know, that's totally a thing for Legacy, because the Conspiracy 2 cards aren't on.
Yeah.
Magic Online
what is
yet.
it? Palace Jailer, the 2/2 that has an O-ring effect. So when it enters, you become the monarch.
I mean, there's an
O-ring selling until you lose the monarch.
Yeah,
which is just
I hadn't thought about that actually.
Crazy
for Legacy,
good.
That was a problem for Legacy as well. I mean, I think I you know, sort of in the back of my mind knew about it, because but in the past they've done a good job of printing over all the cards that people actually play into Moto. But yeah, that's interesting. So maybe that'll lead more discourse about Pauper.
I think hopefully with this,
it sucks.
Hopefully with this new system of the treasure chest, once they manage to iron out the fact that they are awful value, I would hope that they use this as a way to kind of like reprint stuff strategically in a way that doesn't like upset the way that Magic Online works, because that's a really big problem, that we have this incongruity, and I don't know what's taken them so long.
I mean, it's because instead of actually printing the sets these cards were in, they printed the Masters Edition set, right?
Yeah,
like that's a big part of the problem. They printed these compilation anthology sets, I guess you could say, as opposed to the actual sets. So like, you know, I don't think like Ice Age is actually on Moto, right? I think the first one is Mirage, or maybe it's
I think everything from before Mirage, because that's the first draftable set. Like you can technically draft stuff before then. Don't do it. It's bad.
Right.
It's terrible. It's also why, for example, the red and blue blasts aren't legal online.
Right. I mean, it's the source of a lot of the incongruity. And you know, it's only relevant for Pauper because it's Common's only format, and you know, up until now, I guess they've done a good job of integrating those legacy cards, and you know, obviously rarity doesn't matter in Legacy, so.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully they can get this sorted out quickly, because it is a little frustrating. And I do think that Ash Barrens is just good for us, because people have long wanted to do kind of greedy mana bases where you're going like, where your curve out has to be like a creature of one color one turn, creature of another color the second turn, and this does help smooth out mana bases pretty effectively.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good card.
All right, let's move on a little bit. So this is episode 25, and we took a week off for the stream that we did of that tournament, and that means this is 26 weeks. We're half a year old as a podcast.
I remember 26 weeks ago when I said, "Hey, Mike, do you want to do a podcast?"
That is empirically not how it happened.
That's not at all how it happened.
Have we ever actually told that story on air?
I don't think so. I think it was literally just Mike said, "Hey, Adrian, would you want to do a podcast? We have a lot of opinions, and we might as well record them." And I was like, sure.
I think one of the other selling points was you already had a microphone.
Yeah, I have
because
that.
you had been making videos.
Yeah, I had been making videos for some time, so I did have a little bit of experience producing content. But when he said that, I didn't really think he was serious. I was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, man. I mean, we were like acquaintances, but
Yeah,
we weren't
yeah.
really like super good. Like we're BFFs at this point. And,
Yeah.
and that moment happened when Mike said to me, he's like, I kind of wish I'd invited you to my wedding.
To be fair, your girlfriend did take care of our dog,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
greatly
yeah.
appreciated. But yeah, like
But that meant a lot to me when you said
yeah.
that.
It was definitely like kind of one of those spur of the moment things where I was just like, Adrian's got a microphone. We could do a
Well,
podcast.
and then
We talk.
and he was like, "All right, how does the Sunday sound?" And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And then we're on Sunday, we're doing the first episode. I'm like, I guess we're actually doing this.
Have you ever gone back and listened to the first episode?
No, I'm too scared.
Oh, dude, I'm terrified of it. I can't go back and listen to the old stuff at all.
The topic was mono white Delver.
It was. And we were recording off a single like universal mic, so there's like all the sound in
And-
the room.
and
Like
we
you can
we
hear
were
so much.
we were in my apartment, we were in the office, and we were using my computer, which
And
is
the fan was running.
so loud. Yeah, so loud, so hot.
And now we're on two separate microphones, so we can kind of like chill and
We're just on Mike's couch right now.
yeah, and we can actually like separate out the audio. So if one of us starts coughing or something, I can go in and get that. We've improved a lot.
Yeah,
The jokes haven't improved. We as
the discourse.
the discourse has improved. And we're looking to improve more in the next half year. Hopefully by the end of the year we'll be in a good spot.
And
Maybe some new mics, maybe some like better setup.
we're never replacing you. Ho
Yeah.
ho ho! Remember, when there's only one podcast, you have to be the best. Or however
Yeah.
that goes.
I mean, I've joked with a lot of people that we are the best or premier popper podcast because we are the only.
We have some good reviews. We have a 5-star reviews on iTunes. I'm not saying that you, the listener, should go rate us 5 stars right now or anything, but you could if you really felt like it. Be nice. Be a nice little half-year memento.
But I feel like it's been a good experience. Like when we started this, we were just two dudes with a microphone and an opinion, and we now have a bunch of people who come and tune in and listen to us and take our opinions seriously. And on top of that, like we do have conversations with people in this community that a year ago I wouldn't have expected to be talking to. Like we talk with Alex Ullman, we talk with Stephen Murray, like
We talked with the Popper Fox.
yeah. Like there's a lot of stuff that we've gained from this, and we've also had to like learn how to make audio recordings work, and we had to figure out that streaming setup. Like,
And I mean, I guess like, it sounds so cliche, but like really the biggest thing is just consistency. And people who produce content will tell you that all the time. Oh, you just got to be consistent. And
yeah.
like, I don't really think you really realize how true that is until you start making it. Because I see, a lot of people, totally anecdotal evidence here. A lot of people on Reddit or like other forums who were like, oh, well, I'm a streamer, but I really only stream like, once every couple months. And it's like, you're never really going to grow your show basically if you don't do it often enough that for people to care.
also, I feel like as a player, just the fact that we have to like discuss things every week makes us a little bit better at playing this format. Like I definitely have figured stuff out because of lists I've been sent on this podcast, and like I definitely feel like there's a level of personal growth in play just because like we have to sit down every week for an hour and think about this format and like be critical of it and have long-winded discussions kind of on the fly.
Yeah. I mean, Mike and I prepare the topics for the episode like the night before or the day of. Yeah, like we're not pondering these deep existential questions all week or anything. So
Yeah, but I feel like this has been good for me as a player, and we get like routine emails, not super frequently, but we get a lot of emails from people thanking us for like putting the podcast together and like suggesting things for us to do.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. Like the first time we got an email from someone being like, "Hey, try this out." it's like, okay,
And some of that feedback we've integrated into the show. The maybe board was J.A. Bradley's idea,
was it?
basically. Entirely,
Man,
yeah.
it's been a while. It's been a while since we've done that. Since we've been doing that.
Yeah, he was like, I think you should do a segment where you review a card every week. And so
Yeah.
here we are with the maybe board. And like, we haven't, the maybe board probably has only existed for maybe, 5 or 6, maybe 7 episodes at the most. Like, we haven't been doing it that long.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been fun, and I think like as we go, we're only going to get better and better at this. Hopefully,
Right.
um,
Hope, yeah. Until we just start to deteriorate.
yeah, until our bodies slowly start dying. But
I
yeah,
think
no, it's been a blast of a half year.
I think my favorite thing too is sort of something you mentioned earlier. It's the community building. It feels good to like basically be providing a community service of a weekly show for people to listen to, because Popper is kind of a neglected format by Wizards, and it's sort of a niche format in Magic. So our community is fairly strong, and I'm really happy to be serving that community and producing content for those people to enjoy.
Yeah, and people, you see it not infrequently on like the subreddit, people being like, I wish we had more content. And what I can tell you is this stuff is not actually that hard.
Yeah, if you wanted to do a Popper podcast, I'm not saying we have the market cornered or anything, but
yeah, like
it's not that hard.
let's be real. We managed to, the first episode, I think we used a free piece of software, Audacity.
Right.
We used that microphone's like $30-$40, right?
It was 40. I used it's a Snowball.
Yeah,
a Snowball Blue.
A Snowball Blue mic, and that was it. Like that's where it started. We're now on a slightly nicer setup where money has been invested, blah blah blah. But
we're using GarageBand.
Yeah, let's just record the 2 separate audio channels. That's the big deal. But there is not a lot of like, I don't mean to deride us too much. There's not a lot of skill in what we do. The most difficult part of this podcast week to week is just talking.
Yeah, and I think that's another big thing though that you sort of hit on, is you need to have someone you have chemistry with. Yeah. And I'm not saying we went to high school together or anything, but we have some chemistry.
Well, I mean,
you just got it.
No, it took a second to click. So actually, that if you're gonna do content with another person, I'm gonna tell you what I've told a lot of people. The best part about doing this podcast with you in particular is we have very different opinions on some things, but we agree on a lot of things. Like you want your co-host to be a Venn diagram, not a circle, because if you just agree with everything your co-host says, it makes for boring, non-dynamic conversations.
I agree.
Yeah.
Also, we both have like dad sense of humor, so that helps.
Yeah.
Dad humor.
I don't know. It's definitely been super interesting, and if you want more content, go out there and make it. Like,
no day but today.
Yeah, it is not as hard as you might
However, if you would instead prefer us to produce more content, why don't we tell them about that thing we were talking about?
So we've been talking about this for a while. We're going to try and pump it out in the next couple weeks. We are going to be on Patreon.
Right. And the idea, sorry to interrupt you, the idea is not that we want to put any of our content behind a paywall. We never want to do that. Obviously, I just got done talking about how I think community is really, really important. But what we would like to do is incentivize some people who might want some additional content to donate a little bit, basically. And, therefore we can take some more time to produce, some little snippets for them, basically. Nothing really that big, but
yeah, it's basically going to be, we're not looking to, make this our day job, but basically what we're trying to do is make it so if people want to pay us to create more content in addition to this hourly podcast every week, we will do that.
Right. And that money's going to go to like more equipment, basically.
More equipment, making sure that
server space, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Probably some of it, one of the reward tiers we've talked about is doing a weekly stream. So part of that would go to,
crippling student debt.
Well, part of it would go to like leagues and assorted upkeep stuff for the cast and the streams that would ensue.
It would all go towards more content is the point.
Yeah. This again, we're not trying to make this our day job. We're just trying to say if you want to pay us, we will make more stuff for you. And this podcast will always be here until we're just done with it. Like you're never you will never have to pay to hear this podcast. And that's a promise right now, forever.
Oh my God. Okay, I guess I'll sign on the dot. I guess I'll sign in blood here. Got him.
Oh, that was bad.
That was
bad. But yeah, so that's going to be the big thing for the next half of the year moving forward is we're going to be setting up a Patreon. It will be posted to all our regular social media channels. Do not feel pressured to give to this. You know, if you want to, it will help us out tremendously.
And if you think it's a good idea, tell your friends. And if you think it's a bad idea, tell your enemies. That'll get them.
Every time.
It's one of my favorite jokes.
Moving on, we've got a second discussion topic.
Yeah.
To round out the day, we're going to do something that's a little goofy. Top 10 spooky Halloween-themed creatures you may not have heard of.
Right, because we were going through the list, and Grey Merchant, Carnophage, and Gurmagang were all really, really easy.
Yeah.
Phyrexian Rager, pretty easy.
We went for the unusual suspects here. Starting things off, Nantuko Husk and its whopping 3 different functional reprints. There's Nantuko Husk, there is Vampire Aristocrat, there is Phyrexian Ghoul, and there is Blood Baron, all of which are 2/2s for 2 and a black. And you can sacrifice a creature to give it +2/+2 until end of turn.
And they're pretty good cards. I think the reason they're not played is because the deck that plays that effect is playing the one that's smaller, the 1/1 for 2.
Bloodthrone Vampire.
Yeah, but I mean, these cards are still fine.
Yeah, they're nice little sacrifice engines. And interestingly enough, there are 4 different versions of them, and none of them get hit by Victim of Night.
What is Phyrexian Ghoul? What creature type is it? Zombie?
I believe it's a zombie.
Okay.
It's weird though that they've managed to do over the years 4 functional reprints that all don't get hit by a card that wasn't in the same block as any of them. Just a neat little coincidence.
Not even the vampire.
Nope, Vampire was a core set one.
Huh.
Yeah, weird, right?
Yeah, that is weird.
Next up on the list, Twisted Abomination from earlier.
Yeah, we just talked about it. We know, but this one is so sweet. 5 and a black for a 5/3 that regenerates with swamp cycling. Pretty. Yeah. And plus, it's like in the arena. It's got like this huge scythe in its hands, and it's like glowering over a much smaller and on the ground opponent. And it's got like this head wrap. I don't know. It's a pretty cool looking card.
It's originally from Scourge, I believe, where there was the full cycle of land cyclers, and it's actually probably the only playable one outside of Limited.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong card, and the art on it is pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. It's all right.
Some nice action to it. Some nice flowing movement.
Dynamic.
Next up, we've got Augur of Skulls, who we have discussed on the podcast before. 1 and a black for a 1/1, regenerates for 1 and a black. But the important thing is, sacrifice Augur of Skulls, target player discards 2 cards, play this ability only during your upkeep. So the cheesy thing to do with this is using Undying Evil on it in your upkeep and mind twisting your opponent.
And it's a suitably creepy pose. It's like a skeleton on like a hill. And it's like hunched over. He's got like a staff, and he's contemplating mind twisting your opponent. He really hopes that's what you'll do with him.
To be fair, most of the time though, this guy just eats a removal spell on turn 2. He's very.
You could play him on turn 3 with regeneration up.
No, his regeneration is 2. You'd have to wait till turn 4 to regenerate this guy.
Doesn't seem very good.
Yeah, he's fun. He's part of the Augur cycle, who could all only be sacrificed during your upkeep, and he's probably the best because one of them is a giant growth during your upkeep.
That seems terrible.
Yes, it was. It is. It will always be terrible.
Is the blue one Ancestral Recall?
I think the blue one draws you a card. Or gives something flying. I forget which.
It doesn't matter.
They were all bad.
They're all bad.
Next up, we got Phantom Nomad from way back in Judgment. This is a ghost, a spirit, since ghost is no longer a type. 1 and a white, you get a 0/0 with two. That comes into play with 2+1/+1 counters on it, and when damage would be dealt to it, prevent that damage and remove a +1/+1 counter instead. Do you know what happens when you put an armadillo cloak on this?
He lives forever.
He lives forever.
I mean, well,
It's
he
silly.
survived. He survived his damage forever.
Yes, he
Didn't that
survives
used
damage.
to? I remember reading about this on the subreddit recently.
It used to be
A standard deck, right?
It used to be a standard thing. It also apparently used to be a thing that people played in Pauper because it's just hard to remove during combat, so you have to use a kill spell on it.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah. It could
I
be
mean,
worse.
it's not that creepy.
It's not super creepy. It's a ghost man.
What's next on our list of spoops?
Next up is Insolent Neonate. It's a vampire. It's a sexy vampire.
It's the red 1-drop with Menace, where when you sacrifice it, discard a card, draw a card.
Yep. Seeing play in Burn right now.
Seeing a mainstay of terrible burn decks everywhere.
Also seeing play in Modern Dredge, I believe.
Yeah, there it's really good, right? Because you're pitching
Grave Troll.
Grave Troll, and then you're dredging it off the same card.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, definitely kind of a more niche card, but it is a vampire and one of the more playable ones for our format.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't want to go for some of the easy, 1 mana, 2 power ones, so we went for something a little bit more outside the box.
Dothy Slayer, it has knives for every soul.
Next on the list, we're going back to Creepy Ghost Town, Custody Squire. That is, this one's a paper special.
This is like the poster child of Paper Popper too. I feel like it's like when people are like, "Man, there's this card. I really wish I could play on Moto." 9 times out of 10, it's freaking Custody Squire.
Yeah, 5 mana, 4 and a white for a spirit cleric, I believe. It's a 3/3 with flying, and then it has Will of the Council. When it enters the battlefield, everyone picks in turn order a creature, artifact, or enchantment, I believe, in your graveyard. And whatever gets the most votes or is tied for the most votes goes back to your hand. It is a universal Gravedigger, Oromancer, etc. effect for permanence in our format.
Right, it's a strong card.
Sweet value late game. Also a 3/3 flying for 4 mana with no upside is, not the best, but it's pretty
playable.
It's par for course, right? Next on the list, Bleak Coven Vampires, one of my faves.
Yeah, the Metalcraft 4/3 that will drain your opponent for 3 if you have the Metalcraft.
Drains for 4.
Oh, oops-a-doodle. Wow, that's a little better than I thought. Would you compare this to, let's say, some sort of single-horned animal that might be used to lay waste to fortifications?
Rhinoceroses have 2 horns.
Excuse me, princess.
Oh, for those of us who aren't the 2 of us in this room right here, he was tormenting me with this all through F&M. Look up the old Legend of Zelda cartoon sometime. It's bad. It's terrible. But yes.
But of course, I'm making a jab at the fact that people call this the Pauper Siege Rhino. Everyone knows, Mike.
Yeah. It is a very effective card, though. It gets you back in a game very quickly. 4 life on either side is a 8-point life swing, and it's just enough to really matter.
The unsung hero, of course, is Pot of Greed.
Jeez, just all
the memes.
Yep. Next up, we've got a Horror from Torment. This is Mesmeric
Torment,
Fiend.
the most Halloween set ever.
It is. We probably could have honestly done a list of just
Great.
cool torment cards that are Halloween-y.
Yeah.
And we would have been fine. We would not have been hurting for content. But Mesmeric Fiend is 1 and black for 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, opponent reveals their hand. You pick a non-land card from it. It gets exiled. When Mesmeric Fiend leaves the battlefield, it has a separate second trigger that puts it back in their hand.
Or if you're awesome, you can bounce the Fiend in response, or you can use Mindraker and process that card from exile, then bounce the Fiend back to your hand. Bada bing, bada boom. They don't get their card back.
There's a lot of shenanigans.
The spicy plays. Also, they reprinted this with Brain Maggot.
Except it's a combined trigger, which means
it's fixed.
It's the fixed version. For anyone who hasn't been playing Magic as long as I have, when you have two separate triggers, you can finagle it so that if, for example, with Mesmeric Fiend, if it leaves the battlefield before its first trigger resolves, it will just exile the thing.
This led to some hilarious shenanigans with O-Ring and Fiend Hunter.
Yep. Is Fiend Hunter's the split one?
Fiend Hunter's the split
Banisher
one,
Priest is the fixed one.
yeah, and then the new one from Kaladesh is also fixed.
But yeah, this is how Wizards now templates it as it is exiled until this card leaves the battlefield. So you can't, I've definitely seen people like do the combo of Journey to Nowhere and Capsize. So you journey their thing, exile it, capsize your journey while the other ability has yet to resolve. Fun times.
Hilarity ensues.
The last two personal inclusions. Mine is going to be Pulling Teeth, a card which I cannot tell you what it does because the artwork is so personally upsetting to me.
It's teeth getting pulled out of a giant mouth.
It's rotting teeth getting pulled out. I don't know why, but as a kid, I had an intense fear of all my teeth rotting away.
It's from Morningtide, I want to say.
Yes, it's from one of the Lorwyn Shadowmoor sets. But for me, this is probably the most terrifying art they've ever put on a Magic card because it triggers one of my deep, deep fears when it comes to imagery. Like I can't do any movie where someone gets like a tooth knocked out. Are you pulling it up so you can read it?
It's actually pretty awful. I mean, it's actually not that.
Read it.
Pretty awful. It's 1 in a black sorcery clash with an opponent. If you win, target player discards 2 cards. Otherwise, that player discards a card.
And for those who don't know, clashing is revealing the top card of your library. Whoever has a higher converted mana cost wins.
It's basically Joust from Hearthstone.
And then you get to choose if you then get to scry that card, right?
Oh, I don't know. Right?
I'm pretty sure that Clash lets you put it on the bottom if you don't like it.
I don't know. Yeah, you can put it on the top or the bottom.
Yeah, so you get a 1 card scry after the Clash resolves, which is neat. That card is bad and it upsets me deeply.
It should feel bad.
Every time I'm like doing a search for Pauper stuff while I'm like kicking around ideas and that card shows up, it really is just like, ugh. I feel uncomfortable. My skin hurts. And last on the list, you insisted on this the moment you saw it during our searches.
All right. So I'm not gonna lie to you. I think that this card could be the next big thing in the Pauper format. Not only is it terrifying, it's also incredibly good.
Yeah.
I am, of course, talking about none other than Pith Driller. Pith Driller costs 4 mana and 1 black Phyrexian mana, so 5 total, but potentially 4. It's a 2/4. When Pith Driller enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. I mean, the result.
Value.
It speaks for itself, man. You play a 2/4 that can block almost anything in the format.
It goes in any deck.
It goes in any deck.
It's not restricted into like one color. Like you're not splashing for this. You're just turn 4, 2/4. You're shrinking one of their things.
You're killing something. Probably.
You could be killing something.
Killing an unflipped Delver. Killing some sort of other 1/1 creature that might need killing.
Now, hear me out. What happens when this spicy little card gets paired up with, say, a Ghostly Flicker and Archaeomancer?
Oh, dude. Ooh. Then you have infinite -1/-1 counters, obviously. I just mean,
that's sweet.
Like, this card is insane, and I am shocked that it's not played in more decks. Honestly and truly shocked. It is an artifact creature, which may be why, because you can Ancient Grudge it, of course. But
that's true.
I mean, but this is a 4 of an affinity. Like, I'm trying that out next time I play, because I think that's really the reason I didn't do so well at the last FNM.
You got to bring some of that. You got to bring some of that spice.
I'm just saying, Pith Driller is the business.
Oh yeah, it's the truth.
And it also has a terrifyingly large drill.
Yeah, it looks kind of like the what are those things from BioShock? You play BioShock?
Big Daddies.
Yeah,
I mean, and it hits like 1/2. It gives something -1/-1. That I mentioned that, and then it's a 2/4 for 4.
Yeah,
the card is insane.
Just value. We're pulling up on an hour. You want to take us out here, Adrian?
Yeah. All right. That's all we've got for today. Thanks to Pat's Games for giving us a place to play Weekly Popper, as well as those 2 foil pith drillers they gave me. And thanks to Elle for the use of the song Quantitative as our theme music. You can find that and other great tracks on his SoundCloud under the name LLL. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. We're also on iTunes, and if you subscribe there, please leave an iTunes review. It really helps us out. Written is better. If you have an idea for a discussion topic or a deck list you'd like for us to discuss, you can either use the contact form on our website or email us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. I'm Adrian Gonzalez.
I'm Michael Petchek.
And we're signing off for Color Commentary.